The car you see behind me is the all-new Mercedes-AMG GLA 35. Now I have a couple of questions. Is it an SUV? Is it a hot hatchback? Or is it even a proper AMG? Well, we have the car with us today. You know the drill. Let's find out.
You're watching the AutoX YouTube channel. You can also get your daily dose of all things automotive on our website, autox.com, and follow us on social media. Don't forget to check out our monthly magazine and make sure to hit the bell and subscribe button so you don't miss a thing.
First things first, the GLA 35 AMG is not a full-fat AMG as you probably expect. Well, for that you'll have to opt for the GLA 45 AMG. So that's not available in India, but for the time being this is the top of the line GLA model that we have here in India. So of course this has a lot of performance on offer. This comes powered by a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged motor. It's a twin scroll turbo and it develops 302 bhp and 400 Newton meters of torque. So that is of course a lot of performance, and it comes mated to an 8-speed dual clutch automatic gearbox. Now if you put your foot down, it'll do 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. It's about 5.1. So that is quite quick for a car of this size, and it feels quite sprightly also. If you're on the go, it has power everywhere. There is of course a little bit of lag at low RPMs, but that is with every turbocharged engine. But apart from that, from around 2000 RPM or 1500 RPM to all the way up to 5 or 6000 RPM, this motor just goes. Right now I'm driving it in comfort mode, so everything is very subdued, everything is very sublime. It doesn't feel shouty, it doesn't feel jerky. But there are 5 modes, so if you go for the harder options, if you go for the more hardcore options, that is the Sport or Sport Plus, you can immediately feel the difference. The throttle is really responsive, the steering gets sharp and it's quite heavy also. So overall it turns into a hot hatch. Now what I really like about this engine is the mid-range, because when you're driving this car in the city and you want to just get away from the traffic, it just pulls. So that is the beauty of this engine. You don't feel any lag in the mid-range when you're riding that torque wave in the middle of the rev band. Well, you'll really enjoy this motor between those RPMs, like 3000 to 6000 RPM. It is really quite nice. Of course, even then I think the throttle has a little bit of play. If you just mash the throttle, it just doesn't go, but once you're there, it is really quite powerful and it is actually quite furious, and you quite enjoy this engine. Now other thing is of course it comes with AMG exhaust valves. So what happens when you put it in Sport and Sport Plus mode, Mercedes says the sound is more emotive. So the valves at the back, the exhaust, they open and then it makes nice noise as well. So I'll show you how the exhaust works. Right now I'm in comfort mode, so I'll just turn it into Sport, and now I'm in Sport mode. So you can hear it starts barking. So in comfort it's quite mellow, and even in Sport Plus it's quite, it's not loud when you're driving it normally. But as soon as you put your foot down, so you hear, it sounds quite nice. It is a bit synthetic I feel, but then it is quite emotive. It turns into a boy racer sort of a thing. I actually really like this behavior, in the sense it turns from being sublime or mellow to naughty, like in just a tap of the button. So you just have to turn it into sport mode and it turns into a boy racer. So this car, it has that dual personality, and I absolutely love it, because most of the time it drives like a normal GLA, but once you put it in Sport or Sport Plus mode, it is all stiff, it is all firm, and it feels like a proper hot hatchback. Now another thing that's totally different in this car compared to the regular GLA is the fact that it comes with AMG tuned suspension. Now what that means is that everything has been firmed up. As in, to give you some of the details, it comes with the adaptive dampers, and they are quite firm, and they're firm everywhere. Wherever you drive, every surface feels abrasive. Right now I'm on nice smooth tarmac, but I can feel everything. I can feel every undulation on the road. So it is quite stiff. Of course, I'm in Sport Plus mode, so everything is firm. But even if I turn it into comfort mode, the engine, the throttle response, the gearbox, everything has been toned down, but the suspension still feels like it's right on the edge. Of course, it's bearable, but I won't say it's comfortable. Everyday driving, when you're driving on our roads, especially this is monsoon season, and the roads are in really bad shape, so you feel every bump on the road, you feel every undulation. So in terms of everyday practicality, well, of course, I think it is livable, but it is a little too stiff. Now the good part about the 35 AMG is that, of course, it is a GLA, and the new generation GLA is quite spacious. But at the back, the ride is going to be really bumpy, because when you go over speed breakers, you can feel the rear is just too rigid. In any mode, whatever mode you choose, it is going to be a little too bumpy. So for rear seat passengers, of course, there's a lot of space, but I don't think they're going to be very comfortable sitting in this car, because it is, like I said, it's an AMG. Of course, you don't expect it to ride like a normal GLA, but then it is a little too stiff. If there's one thing that you can't fault with in this car, it's the handling, because even though Mercedes claims that the GLA is an SUV, well, this one is not. This feels like a hot hatch. I've been calling this a hot hatch because it is a hot hatch. And I think in that respect, it makes a lot of sense for our country, because the ground clearance is decent, and that means on bad roads you really don't have to think twice. It doesn't scrape, it doesn't touch anything, it's not that low. So that means practicality wise you're sorted. But when you find the right roads, you just turn it into Sport Plus mode, everything firms up, and then you can take corners at really high speeds. Of course, when you're driving too fast, as in you're too clumsy with your inputs, then it does understeer, as in if you load the front too aggressively, or you just turn in quickly or sharply, well, that's when you'll feel that the car doesn't maintain its line. There are a couple of things that I want to highlight. Well, the steering, it weighs up nicely when you're driving fast, but I think it feels a little numb, and when you're making those quick direction changes, or when you're giving it input mid corner, or you want to change your line, so it does feel a little lazy, or you don't get that feedback what you want. It's not that sharp or responsive, I'd say. Now another thing is the 8-speed dual clutch transmission. Great gearbox, quite quick, upshifts at will. You just have to press the pedal on the right, and it follows your commands diligently. But the other problem is it doesn't downshift as quickly, as if you leave it on its own, well, then it will. But if you're trying to do manual shifts, it doesn't respond to your commands that efficiently. Well, that is a problem, because when you're driving it really fast around a set of bends, or you're really going for it and you need some sort of engine braking before corner entry, it doesn't downshift. Sometimes it downshifts right in the middle of the corner. So that's what I thought was a little bit of problem for me, because I like to take control, and the gearbox was not allowing me to downshift when I wanted to. When it comes to its outer appearance, the GLA 35 doesn't look all that different from the regular GLA. You can even say that it's a little subdued for an AMG. Among things that differentiate it from its lesser siblings, this AMG version has a Panamericana grille with vertical slats, bigger 19-inch 5-spoke AMG alloy wheels, AMG brakes with silver calipers, aluminum-looked roof rails, and a body-colored roof spoiler. I was never a fan of the original GLA, because I thought it looked a little clumsy. But this one, with this new generation, I think Mercedes has fixed that issue, because this car looks compact. Look at those short overhangs. So it looks more hatchback sort of a thing. Of course, it looks more SUV also because of those squared wheel arches. But overall, because of its dimension, because of how it sits on the road, I think this is more of a hatchback. And with these 19-inch wheels, it gives it a more hot hatch sort of a look. So in terms of its exterior, I think it's still understated. It doesn't shout about it being an AMG. So it can really be driven every day. It's sort of a sleeper car. Compared to the exterior, the interior is a bit more racier, which is something that you would want and expect in an AMG. The cabin gets all black sports seats with contrast red stitching and aluminium trim all around. In terms of features, it's well kitted out too. You get the signature dual screens, a Burmester sound system, a panoramic sunroof, electrically adjustable front seats with memory function, 64 colors, ambient lighting, and so on. Quality and fit and finish are of course top notch, but there are a few things worth mentioning. The seats, even though they are quite supportive, are quite hard, and coupled with the stiff suspension, it can get uncomfortable after a while. Another thing that I want to point out is that the GLA still doesn't get wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. In this day and age, that's a bit of a miss on a 60 lakh rupee car. So there are two ways to look at the GLA 35 AMG. First of all, well, it is a compromise in every way because it's not an SUV, it's not a hot hatchback, and it's not even a proper AMG. But at the same time, if you look at it from the different perspective, it's that this car has the best of all of those worlds. It has the ground clearance that you need in India, especially on our bad roads. So on that part, you're covered. Next is the performance and handling. Well, in that regard, it feels like a hot hatchback. The way it goes around corners. Of course, this is like a hot hatchback. The other thing is, if it's in proper AMG, well, of course, you don't get the full fat A45 or GLA 45 AMG in India. Well, you don't need that kind of performance in our country. You would be more than happy to drive this every day because this car, well, it has everything. Of course, I think the ride is a little too firm, but it is not unbearable. You can live with that on an everyday basis. It can be a bit of a stretch, but it is a great car in that regard. Plus the pricing, it is assembled in India, so it's priced at around 58 lakh rupees ex-showroom. So overall, if you think about it as an everyday performance car, well, this thing has all the bases covered.